Yo, what's up guys? Kimo back at it again. Welcome back to the channel. Recently, as you probably have seen, I've been having some decent success with the Runick White Forest or Runick White Forest Bystial deck, however you want to call it. I showed off in the deck profile, which I posted first, that I won my locals with it, 4-0. Recently I also won a display tournament where I won a Ghost of Neos playmat and some packs, which I'll show off on screen here in a second. And yeah, the deck has been doing very well for me. This weekend I was at the Rota pre-release, went 3-1-1. Had a draw against Branded in round 4 and a loss against Atlantean in round 2, which I've never played against. So I was completely unaware of how to interrupt them. That was very fun. Actually, cool experience because it's a fun deck. But yeah, what I'll do today is show off some of the combos you want to do, what your general game plan is with this deck, and what you kind of want to achieve on board. So let's get right into it. Before we start with any of the combos, we'll just go over the deck profile real quickly again. Nothing has changed a lot. The main deck stayed exactly the same, so we're still on the White Forest package with 3 LZ, 3 Sylvie, 2 Rushia, and the Woes. For the Bystials, we still have 3 Rebellion, 1 Magnamid, 1 Saronir, 1 Juice, 1 Baldrake. The spells are still the Regained and Etude of the Branded, and for the Runicks we have 2 Fountain. 3 tip the lighting on this sucks here on this spot. 3 Freezing Curses, 3 Destruction, 3 Flashing Fire, 3 Slumber, 1 Dispelling, 1 Smiting Storm, and 3 Evenly as our non-engine. Nothing changed here. There's some things you could change. I've said before, this is my favorite non-engine for this deck. I wouldn't switch this out. The one flex spot that I think there is really the Etude of the Branded. Against some decks this doesn't do a lot. Against some decks this does a lot. For example, on my matchup against Branded, this came in very clutch because it turns off a lot of their combo lines. They need to go into Rebellion basically every single time because their fusion materials always get punished. If you have a Bystial on board, and you can just kind of throw one on board against them very easily. Against other decks, this doesn't do anything except for the quick effect synchro, which you can't even always do because you need materials for it on board. So I am considering just putting this in the side deck instead, and either putting in like a Talons, another Runick spell, maybe second Rose, because that card is just crazy good. And it kind of sucks to not have a search target for the Sylvie after turn 1 where you search this. So you might even want to play around with the ratios, go to 2 Sylvie and 3 Wuxia, or 3, 2 and 2, but that's something I'll have to experiment with over time. For the extra deck, nothing has really changed a lot as well. We're still on 2 Hugin, still on 2 Jerry, the Arciela, the Silvera, the 1 Diabell, the Honorary White Forest Synchro, the Zapper Shrimp, still on Coral Dragon, Tri-Edge for level 6s, Dispater, Chaos Angel, and Shenyang for level 10s, Babushka, and now SP, because I packed it out of a tin. I've recorded the tin openings as well because I opened up 2 cases, but I wasn't very happy with my style of opening them basically for a video. That's why I haven't uploaded them, but I have the footage. If there's still interest, you can let me know and I'll probably just edit them and throw them together and upload them as like a 2-piece video because I think otherwise they'll be too long. But yeah, let me know. Here the flex spots I think really are just Babushka and Jerry. If you don't play the Babushka, I don't think you necessarily need the second Jerry because the Biscuits and the Regain allow you to recycle basically all your cards from the graveyard. Because they're all light and dark except for the Shenyang and the Coral Dragon, even though you can recycle the Coral Dragon with the Magnamid, just Shenyang is forever lost. But yeah, nothing really changed here. SP just got a little bit more affordable, so if you either pack her or have the money together now, it's kind of mandatory. It plays way too well with this deck, especially with the Regain on board. If you play against any deck that plays light or dark, you just banish their things, shuffle them back, draw a card for it, and only you get the SP back in the end phase. So I think she's really worth it. I have just slightly updated the side deck Still for time, we're on the Scarlight plus now again 3 Spooky Dogwood. Always take this in and out of the side deck. I think both of my recent locals wins, I didn't play this, but it's a very, very strong card. I played on the Rota pre-release this weekend, and I've won one matchup just simply because of this in time. We're on 3 Ash. This is great if your opponent plays, for example, Branded, you add Branded Fusion. It's good against other decks as well, but it really depends on your locals, what you want to put in your side deck. A lot of people at my locals currently play Horus again, and if you Ash the M set with this, then they basically hand loop themselves for 2 cards. It's really, really strong. Often they brick them. It's a nice card to have, but I don't always side it. It's just an option. And then we're on still 2 Talons and the Cold Buyer. If we go first, we start off the evenly, side these in. It's basically the usual line of play. Then we take the Foolish Blurry Goods, Skill Drain, Rivalry, Peekaboo, and D-Barrier as our Floodgates. This helps us access our Floodgates. I tried this at 2 and 3, which I feel is odd, because often you can draw it when you already have the Floodgate in hand, or you sometimes can't access the Floodgate because you can't play into your White Forest cards, and then this is a really odd draw. You can still send a Runick spell to get more draws off your fountain, but playing this at too many copies feels odd, so I cut it down to just 1, and this also allows me to increase the amount of Floodgates in the side deck. Obviously, we could, for example, take out the Ash, play more copies of this, but I like Ash on the side. It's just a very nice generic option. What I did at my last locals win, which was at display tournament, as I said, I showed you playing it in the beginning and the prizes. I took these 2 out. I didn't even play them, just had these 3, and instead I played 2 Blazing Mirror Forces. This card is very fun. Sadly, I didn't get to resolve it once, but I wanted to have it in as an option just to troll. Mirror Force cards obviously aren't the strongest right now, but they're very fun. That's why I played it. But I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. It's just a funny little troll option. So before we get into any combos, what I have to tell you about this deck is that it's very much a non-linear combo deck. Just like any other Runick combo deck, you do rely heavily on the draws. So for example, in the Runick Bystial variant, where you just played Quem, Ecclesia, the Golden Sword Soul, you didn't have very much linear lines of play as well, and it's the same for this one. What you want to achieve here on board is usually you want to establish your fountain, have your Diabell on the board, and your Woe set with any amount of Runicks in your hand. Obviously, as many as possible is ideal, and if you're post side, you want to establish some of your Floodgates. Obviously, this also depends on the matchup. Often I don't even side Floodgates. It really just depends on which kind of deck you play against. Against some decks, Floodgates don't really do a lot. Against some decks, Floodgates really do a lot. So that's why we have Peekaboo, Rivalry, Skill Drain, and the Barrier on the side. If we play against Tempai, Branded, and we go first, you want to set up your D-Barrier. The other ones are decent post side as well if you go second. So if you win your game 1, these can be good, because you just set them if your opponent doesn't have any back row hate, especially no Cosmic, and you can protect from destruction with your Hugin, then these are very good as well. But what you really want to set up is Fountain plus Diabell plus your Woes with access to your Runick spells, maybe a Bystial in hand. That's really all you want to do. As I said, you can extend crazy with the Bystials. This really allows you to play and build very strong boards, very tough boards to play through, and with a lot of interruptions and a lot of layered interruption. But it really always depends on what you draw, and a lot of what you set up is only in your second turn. So in your first turn, this is all you aim for. If you can build something stronger, the better, but it really depends on your draws off your fountain. So the first thing I want to show off is our basic bread and butter combo for the Runick White Forest deck. It doesn't matter if you play Bystials or not, this is what you always try to achieve. For this you need either LZ in hand. Sylvie works exactly the same, but you need to access Hugin twice, because you need the level 2s, go into level 6, synchro level 8. If you draw into Rushia, you don't go into the Call Dragon, but go into the Arcella instead. But this, as I said before, this deck is very much non-linear. The end board you set up really depends on what you draw off your fountain, if you can draw off your fountain as well, and yeah, which ways you can extend. It's very much dependent. My end board basically never looks the same turn 1, but what I usually always establish is Diabell plus fountain plus the woe set and any amount of Runick spells. That's what you always aim for. What we do here is in our main phase activate the effect from LZ in the hand. This special summons her out, and in the same effect searches the Sylvie. This is not an onboard effect, so they can't veil or impermanent. They can only ash it. If they ash it, you're basically free to play with your fountain and your Hugin, which is nice. So then we go normal summon Sylvie to search our copy of Woes of the White Forest. Here we can use any of our Runick spells. Usually if I would have this lineup, I would activate Flashing Fire, because Freezing Curses and Destruction are usually what stops your opponent from playing. You activate Flashing Fire, summon out your copy of Hugin effect, send the Woes for cost to add our copy of Fountain. Here on a new chain we activate the effect of Woes to reset itself, and because it was sent for cost for a monster effect. Here we then go into a Synchro 6 with Sylvie and the LZ to go into our copy of Coral Dragon. Then what we can do is go into our level 8 Diabell and go Chainlink 1 Coral Dragon to draw Chainlink 2 Diabell to target one of our spell traps in the graveyard to add it back to hand. Here we could target the Flashing Fire, add it back to hand, and Coral Dragon draws us a card, which in this case would be a crazy crack draw with the tip. And then we have 5 cards in hand, activate our Fountain, and now we can either pass turn and play with these on the opponent's turn, which are crazy interruptions, or try to combo off more. And it really depends on how confident you feel in your ability to combo off and how to play into your opponent's board on their turn when they try to set something up. It really just depends on what you draw. Here I would start playing on my turn still, but that's also a question of what you like to play rather. If we just say we pass here, obviously we have these as interruptions on the opponent's turn, but I'll show off what you can do with just the Sylvie and the Woes. First thing first, let's say our opponent activates a card, activates an effect. You can activate the Diabell and send any spell trap from hand or field as cost to special out one of our Synchro Tuner monsters. Usually this is your Silvera, which on summon books the opponent's field. This is not once per turn, so you can do this multiple times, or we can go into our copy of Zapper Shrimp, and both have their merits. Let's say we do the Silvera here. We activate the effect to book the opponent's field as Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. We activate the effect of LZ from graveyard to add back to our hand, because a Synchro, our Tuner Light Spellcast was summoned on the opponent's turn. We book the board, and then we can do the same thing again by activating the effect of Sylvie, shuffling back the Silvera into the extra deck, and then activate the Woes of the White Forest at any point. Summon out a copy of LZ, let's search for one, and in the same effect, Synchro off again into our Silvera to book their board. And that's how you double book, plus you have your Runick spells in hand to interrupt the opponent on their turn, which is very nice. Why the Zapper Shrimp is good is because sometimes you don't have access to your destruction. You have another Runick spell, let's say the destruction is in your graveyard. You have your Freezing Curses, and instead of the Silvera, we summon out the Zapper Shrimp. Still have the Woes set obviously here, but we'll leave the other stuff in the graveyard. It doesn't really matter to show it off. We send for cost again one of our spell traps to the graveyard. We have this in hand, I think, basically. To summon out the Zapper Shrimp, and on summon, not mandatory, but you can send a spell trap from your hand or field again to nuke a spell trap on the opponent's side of the board. This also has a quick effect once per chain. You can quick effect synchro, and this is very nice on the opponent's turn because you can go one of two ways. Either use these two to go into a level 10 Chaos Angel, which on summon banishes a card from the opponent's side of the field, which is a very strong interruption. Also, this now would be protected from monster effects, just like any of your synchro monsters, because it was used with 2 light monsters, the Diabell and the Zapper Shrimp. What you can also do though is go into your copy of Chenyang. Chenyang is really nice because first and foremost it has a protection effect, but secondly, if a card is banished from the field or the graveyard, doesn't matter, or even the deck, you can non-target banish a card from the opponent's side of the field and their graveyard. And this plays super well with your Runicks. Any of your Runick spells, as you probably know or should know if you play Runicks, banish cards of your opponent's deck if you don't use the effect of special summon but one of the interruptions effects or search effects. So let's say we go tip to search any of our Runick spells. Here we just take the Smiling Storm, the first one we find. On a new chain, we can trigger Fountain as Chain Link 1, target any number of Runick spells we have in the graveyard up to 3, and as Chain Link 2, trigger the Chenyang to non-target banish 1 card of the opponent's field and graveyard. You have to banish both, so you can't trigger this if they have no card on the field or no card in the graveyard. But this is really nice to not only interrupt the opponent furthermore, but also to chain block your Fountain on the opponent's turn so they can't ash it. And here we would get 3 draws plus 2 banishes, 1 on the board, 1 on the graveyard. And you sometimes draw into your Bystials, into your Runick spells. Is a really nice interruption. So either Chaos Angel or Chenyang works really well. It really depends on the matchup. If your opponent really struggles to out a Chaos Angel, it's basically a win. They have to imperm, they can't Veiler it. A lot of people struggle with it at tournaments. Some people just don't know. Even if you explain it, they don't really understand it. It's like the Master Duel players not reading cards, and they ask like 5 times. You explain it properly every single time, and yeah, Chaos Angel can win a lot of matchups by itself. The second thing I want to show off is how to use your Foolish Burial Goods. Here what we would do is in the main phase go again, LZ, same thing, effect, send a spell trap for cost, to search our copy of Sylvie, we then normal summon Sylvie, effect to search a copy of Woes, go into our Runics, summon out the Hugin effect, on a new chain to discard the Woes, to search a copy of Fountain, then Woes effect to reset itself because it was sent for cost for a monster effect. Here you do the same thing, you go into your Coral Dragon, and before we go into the Diabell, at any point we need to send our Foolish Burial Goods. It's basically just a Foolish Burial for any spell trap in your deck. That's how we access all of our Floodgates. Here, because we're, let's say, playing against Yubel, we send our copy of There Can Be Only One, but we have the barrier for decks like Tempire or Branded, Skill Drain for basically any deck that isn't Horus Beatdown, and Rivalry for any deck that doesn't get hit by Tikaboo. Usually one of the two does the trick. Skill Drain is basically good against any deck, really, especially against any weirdly mixed deck. It's very nice. But here, as I said, we send our copy of Tikaboo because we're playing against Yubel, basically the best deck in the format probably right now. We'll have to see how that changes with Ritual of the Abyss. Here what we do is we go into the level 8 Diabell, and then go Chaining 1 Coral Dragon to draw a card, Chaining 2 Diabell, target our Floodgate from the graveyard to add it back to our hand. You can do this with any spell trap. Maybe you want a Runick spell back, which often you want them in your graveyard, but if you don't have any other Runick spells in hand, here we have the Freezing Curses. You might even want to add a Runick spell back, but here, that's how we access our Floodgate. Add it back to our hand, activate the Fountain, set the Floodgate, and we can here either gamble a little bit and hope that that we draw something nice off our Fountain, by summoning out another copy of Hugin without a discard. We just have the Destruction Graveyard, which would give us 2 draws, which would be nice. Or we save it for the opponent's turn, keep it in hand. Some people even like to set it. Sometimes I do that myself. It really depends on what the matchup is, what I feel they might be playing. Post side, I sometimes set my Runick spells because they try to Cosmic the Fountain, and we don't have a way to deal with that, so we just set our Runick spells so we can still activate them on the opponent's turn if we don't block our spell trap zones too heavily. But usually we just keep it in hand. At any point we flip the Peekaboo. Usually you do that on the first Fiend Summon of the Yubel, and then they can't play. This just completely knocks them out. We still have the Woes set up, we have the Diabol set up, and 2 draws off the Fountain with the Freezing Curses in hand and the Destruction Graveyard. And this really is enough to interrupt most boards. Double book with Woes and Diabol, or go into Chaos Angel or Chanyang, floodgate them, boom boom, you win. That's basically how it goes. What I could do now, after showing you the basic bread and butter combos, is to show you some crazy custom hand combos. We have, for example, Tip in hand, Rebellion in hand, LZ in hand, 2 more Runick spells, and you can basically summon everything. Obviously, as I said before, this deck is very much non-linear in its combos. You want to establish a Fountain, your Woes, your Diabell plus Runick spells in hand. But it all really depends on what you draw off the Fountain, what you draw off the Call Dragon, what is your starting hand, if you can even access the White Forest cards. Maybe you somehow brick because you have a very weird hand. Sometimes you just end on Hugin plus a Fountain with Runick spells in hand and in the graveyard. That's not a really bad board either. It really just depends on what you have and what your opponent has. But what we could do now is just do a testing hand, and in the next video I'll probably show off. Okay, this is ironic actually. We'll shuffle the deck again. But this bar the second Rebellion would be kind of a custom hand, so we'll just shuffle and do it again. But yeah, that's exactly what I did not want to show off, because this hand would have gone crazy. So we can draw 5 cards and just act as if we would go first. Evenly nice that draw. Z very good, Tip very good. So what I would do here first in the draw phase is activate Tip to search a copy of Fountain. This plays around Troll and Veiler. You could of course summon out the Hugin, but basically the only way they can interact with this is the Ash. They can't draw you yet because you're still in the draw phase, which is very good, because that's one of the cards that can really hurt you sometimes. If you don't get to your Fountain when they draw you, you basically have to pray that they can't kill you through the few Runick spells you might be able to set. So we search our copy of Fountain here. There we have it. And then we would banish a card from the opponent's deck. Always do it after you resolve the effect of your Runick spells. This goes for playing Runick, but most importantly if you play against Runick, because here of course we search the Fountain, but depending on what you might banish off the deck, your search could change, because you know, for example, that you banished a 1-off or whatever. So this, if you play against Runick, always do it after they resolve the effect. So here we go standby main and activate the effect from LZ from hand. We discard the Even Lethal Clause because obviously we don't need it. We special the LZ and in one effect search the Sylvie. Of course, they can't Imperm or Veiler this, they can just basically Ash it, because this is one effect to special and search, and it's effect from the hand. Then we would normal summon Sylvie and search our Woes of the White Forest. And what we can do very nicely with this hand is basically establish a double Fountain. What we do now is activate our Fountain, and on a new chain, don't do it on the same chain, we activate our Slumber to special summon another copy of Hugin. Oh, sorry, the first copy of Hugin, because we searched the Fountain with Tip. It's important that you don't do it on the activation of the fountain, because otherwise the fountain isn't considered as on the board and you can't use its effect to draw. So here we go fountain chainlink 1, targets number and tip to draw 2, and chainlink to Hugin, discard the woes to search another copy of fountain. It's important you chain it this way, because then you can chain block the fountain, can't get ashed, importantly you also can't get ogred. And you want to get the fountain out of the deck before you draw your cards, because otherwise you might be unlucky and draw into it, and then you can't have a search target for Hugin. The 2 Runicks go on the deck, and we draw 2. This is a very nice draw. So what we do now is we activate our new copy of Fountain. Oh, sorry, first resolve the woes to reset itself, never forget that. Afterwards, we activate our second copy of Fountain. This is very good because Fountain is a soft once per turn, so you can theoretically recycle it as many times as you want to get additional draws with Jerry, with Diabell. Here we obviously use the Diabell. We go Ozette and Sylvie into our copy of Coral Dragon to get an additional draw of it. We go Coral Dragon and Hugin into our copy of Diabell. We could have also gone Arciella and kept the fountain on board and use it as cost to search a Rushia, and then we could combo it differently. Maybe I'll show it off in a second as well with that line. So then we go Coral Dragon, Chainlink 1 to draw a card, Chainlink 2, Diabell, we target the fountain to add back to hand. And Coral Dragon draws. This is a crazy draw as well. Here we would have gone with the Arciella instead. We wouldn't get the draw of the Coral Dragon, but we could get a Rushia on board, which gets us another draw, and we can easily synchro off into a Dispater. But here, what I would do now is go Regained, activate Magnamut, target the Hugin to banish it, and then we would shuffle back the Hugin with the Regain to get an additional draw. In this case would have been Sylvie, which is kind of a dead draw, so it's kind of sad. But maybe you draw into another Runick spell, into something good. But we're still set up very nice with the tip and distraction on the opponent's turn, and Magnamut would search us an additional Bystial, which would with Regain get us another draw on the opponent's turn. We drew the tip of the Coral Dragon, so let's put that back. And we had Hugin on board, Diabell here, and these two. What you could do here instead as well is go into one fountain was of course on the board. That's the first fountain. Go into Arciella. It's something that I seldomly do, but it can be very valuable as well. So we use these two, go into Arciella, and here we send the fountain from field for cost to search our copy of Rushia. Reason being is because we have the Regained and the Magnamut, we can combo off into a Dispater, which is very nice as well. So what we do now is we let's think here for a second, because you might want to play around Nip, for example, which you can do very nicely if you play the Arciella, but you need to get out the Diabell first. Let's see. Let's just pretend like Nip doesn't exist. What we would do then here is use these two to go into our copy of Diabell, and Diabell effect target the fountain to add it back to hand. Then we can activate the fountain, use the effect of Rushia to special summon herself. Rushia effect, send the fountain for cost from our hand to get an additional draw. Evenly is obviously a very bad draw, but maybe we can get rid of that somehow. Let's see. What I would do here is activate the regained. Then on a new chain, activate the effect of Magnamut, targeting the Sylvie. We'll see why in a second. Then summon the Magnamut effect to search the end phase. We don't trigger the regained because we want the Sylvie as a body in a second. We use these two to go into our copy of Bystials. And then we can use Bystials to special summon the Sylvie. And here, there's two things we could do. I think the smartest way right now is to use these two on board to go into our copy of SP. And then SP effect, target the Hugin in graveyard to banish, because we used an extra deck monster and whatever other effect monster. Banish the Hugin from our graveyard. Then trigger the regain, shuffle back the Hugin into the extra deck and draw an additional card, which is a very good draw here with the freezing curses. And we kind of have layered interruptions. If we would get nipped here, because we would say proceed to the end phase, we have the SP to banish these both, which would be very nice, and then they come back in the end phase. The other thing you can do, let's pretend we don't have the SP on board, is they go to the graveyard, then you use the effect of Lucia to shuffle back the Diabone, the effect of Sylvie to shuffle back the Arciela. Then you have 2 level 4s, you can go into a Babushka and just kind of try to live. But here, we would just pass turn, Magnamut in the end phase, which searches a Bystial. And often people take Drew Swarm, but what I like in this situation is to pick a Ball Drake. And here we have a very nice board. Let me just shuffle the deck real quickly with very much layered interruptions. We have the Diabole to get a booking out by going into the Silvera, or we can go into the Zapper Shrimp as I showed before to go into a level 10 Synchro. We have the Rose, and we just need to summon out an LZ. We don't need the Hugin to do that because we have Sylvie and Lucia in graveyard, and we can just summon them by shuffling back the Arciela. So we activate Rose, chain either Lucia or Sylvie by targeting the Arciela, and then summoning her out, summoning LZ to go into the Silvera. We have the SP to banish. We have 2 Runick spells in hand. We have the Voldrake, and the reason why I put the Despater in the graveyard is to play around cards like Dark Ruler. Because if they hit us with Dark Ruler, Raigeki, Dark Hole, Droplet, whatever, what you can do is on their first summon, maybe you can hold it for a later summon, is trigger the regain, target the Despater to summon it back. So it's even good in the graveyard as long as regain stays on the field. And then we would have 1 interruption, 2 interruptions, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 7, and potentially even 8 because of the onboard effect. So yeah, very, very nice board. And this is very much enough to win a duel just by itself. This would be a very, very good end board. So let me know what you're thinking. As I said, I can do another test hand video where I just go through test hands for an extended amount of time. And yeah, let me know what I could improve, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.